All right, what's up, students? This is episode number 4, I believe, of Testimony Tuesday, and I'm here with Ashleigh Bridges, and she is pregnant. She's due in 7 weeks, and so obviously we're trying to do our best to social distance, and so we're using Zoom like everybody else in America. So Ashleigh's gonna share a little bit of her story, and Ashleigh, you can go ahead and share a little bit of your life with us, please.
Okay. So unlike most testimonies y'all have probably heard, especially Seth's, where he had this huge life-changing moment, I kind of didn't really have that. I've born and raised in church my whole life. I witnessed to people before I was saved myself because I was my dad's soul winning buddy, and I heard him every Saturday, however many people he talked to. I mean, I heard that over and over and over again. So when I would see a kid, I would just verbatim just quote my dad. And
How old were you at this time?
Oh, probably like 5 or 6.
All right.
So I know one of the times my dad, we were in an apartment complex, and my dad was talking to somebody downstairs. He knocked on their door, and I saw a kid sitting on the stairs, and so I went and talked to them, and I'd hear my dad say it, and then I'd repeat it. And so, like I said, I knew about salvation. I knew what it was, but I think at the time it was more of just a repetition pattern. This is what we're supposed to do. And it actually took me, third time's the charm, to truly understand salvation and what it meant. And I was in 8th grade, I think, when it finally clicked for me that, you can pray a prayer, but there's one thing of just repeating words, and it's another of building that relationship and truly meaning it and going forward. So in 8th grade here in Texarkana, we had just moved here. It had been about maybe a year since we'd moved here. It was actually a revival going on at our church. And afterwards, we were selling ice cream to go to camp. And went next door, and I just locked myself in a room in there. And one of the guys came to find me, and he and I were good friends, and he couldn't figure out why I was crying. And I was just like, I need my dad. And so my dad walked in, and, he's like, what's wrong? And I just looked at him and was like, I'm not saved. I'm just bawling. And he was like, well, do I need to show you, or do you think you know? And I was like, no, like, I know what to do. I've witnessed to other people. And that's kind of what was mind blowing to me, was like, I wasn't truly saved myself, but like I grew up that way where I could use what my dad had taught me to influence other people. Yeah. And so my dad sat there with me and prayed over me while I prayed. And I remember walking out of that room just so joyful, felt like this huge burden was just gone. And which was nice, because I was about to be going into high school. And little did I know what trouble I was going to run in there. So I had 2 what I call real boyfriends in high school. Dated one of them for about a year and the other one for 2. And that last one was actually an atheist. And I think that's where a lot of my true testimony comes in, was being a Christian and dating an atheist.
That's tough.
Because it was really tough, because I had seen God do so many things with other people, and I felt like I could be that one person that could change him and bring him to God. And no matter what I did, he shut me down.
Yeah.
He came to church with me a couple times. Wasn't his thing, but he knew it made my parents happy, so he'd do it. But over time, it just became something that started tearing us apart more. And it got to a point, if it was Sunday, he wouldn't talk to me at all. He wouldn't text me. He wouldn't call me. Like, Sundays, I was dead to him. And that's when Seth got into the picture. And we were just friends, became friends with his fiance at the time. And over time, their relationship broke apart, and I started helping him with Sunday school, and our friendship started growing stronger, and we just had all these things in our past that we could relate to with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, like, I had known for about 6 months I needed to break up with the other guy, but I was scared.
Yeah.
And I mean, emotionally and mentally abusive, and I was always scared it would kind of go a step further.
Mm-hmm.
And I eventually had the guts to do it over the phone one night. It took me 2 weeks to do that. I tried in person, but it just didn't work out. And we broke up officially. That felt like another huge weight was just gone.
Yeah.
And then Seth and I got together, and that's when God started throwing those roadblocks in the way, because I was going off to college with the other guy. And I wanted to get out of Texarkana. I wanted to live my own life, start, fresh, get away from my parents. And that's not what God wanted. And while in Denton, I got into 2 car wrecks. One of them, all of us were lucky that we even survived or barely walked out with any injuries. We got sideswiped by a car going about 50 miles an hour, and we jumped the median and barely missed a tree that would have torn the car in half.
Wow.
And then the other one, I just got rear-ended. It was a hit and run. My car broke down the day my mom called me to tell me she paid it off. I was literally, I had just had Panera Bread for the first time like that weekend before. And I had fallen in love with it, and I really wanted to go back. And so class was over. It was a Friday. I'm walking to my car. Mom's like, "Hey, I paid your car off. It's officially yours." And my car wouldn't start. And
oh, man.
tried everything. The church there came and changed my battery for me. It still didn't start. My starter was fine. It had gas. We couldn't figure out what it was. That was right before Thanksgiving too. That was a Wednesday, because I was going to skip class Friday to come home early.
Don't listen to her, students. Don't do
it, because I ended up having to stay for class. So. My grandparents and my dad drove 3 hours to Dallas to tow my car home. And my roommate and I did just so many things that I finally, once my car broke down, I was kind of like, okay, God, like, what do you want? Because so many other issues had come into play, and I just kept feeling like he said, come back home. And I didn't want to, mainly for like peer judgment, I guess you could call it. All my, friends that I graduated high school with that had gone off to these major universities as well. I didn't want to look like the loser who came back home after one semester. And I finally made a pros and cons list. And I also didn't want people to think I was moving home to be with Seth. But once I moved back in with my parents, A&M Texarkana gave me so much scholarship money that they were basically paying me to go to school here. I got a job immediately. They worked with my school schedule, and everything just started playing out. And so it was really eye-opening that it started with a boyfriend who was an atheist, and I had kind of fallen away from God, because there were some Sundays I skipped church to go be with him and things like that. But looking back on it, God was working in my life by placing Seth right at the right time. We were friends for about a year before we started dating. So, it's not this truly like life-changing testimony where I heard God speak. It was more of, I've known about it my whole life. I finally made that decision.
Yeah.
And then just like most seniors in high school, they're ready to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to run away. And that's why your Sunday night lessons on Jonah, I felt like Jonah. I was running away,
Mm.
but I knew God wanted me to stay, and he brought me back.
Yeah.
And ever since, I wouldn't say it's been smooth sailing, but as soon as I moved back, I jumped into the youth group that I actually was a youth member in. I started that youth group as a teenager, and I got to jump in as a leader and watch it
Mm.
grow. And
That's cool.
then Seth and I got to take over, and so yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting how we've talked about this a little bit before, how in your college experience, you didn't realize that all of these things adding up was probably signs, God trying to at the time he was screaming at you, but you didn't realize that. But you said looking back on it, it was like so obvious. You said that you don't know why it took you so long to realize. And then whenever you got, back where God wanted you to be, it's kind of smooth sailing. And that was really interesting. The other thing that I think a lot of people are going to relate with is the fact that you got saved. What did you say, you were 5 the first time?
Yeah, it was like 5 and then like 8 and then
Yeah.
finally about 14 it truly clicked what salvation was and what that meant.
Yeah, and I think the main thing that people miss on that, and what I think clicked for you that time that you were 14, is the idea of a relationship with Jesus. I think that's the same thing that happened with me when I was a very young kid. I realized, oh, there's a God. Oh, I'm sinful. Oh, all this stuff. But there was no idea or concept of a relationship with this God. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And so whenever I was I was 6th grade, going into 7th. So I was kind of right around that age where I realized, oh shoot, like I've recognized that there's a God, but I definitely don't have a relationship with him. And I think that's where a lot of people will, relate to that as well. So that's very cool. So appreciate you taking your time and sharing your testimony this afternoon.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon in person. Hopefully this thing comes to a wrap shortly, but yeah, just appreciate it.
Yes, I hope everybody's staying safe too.
Yeah. And I didn't mention at the beginning of this, Ashleigh is Seth's wife, and he gave his testimony on week 1. And so I should have clarified that and made that connection earlier. So that was episode 4 of Testimony Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.